If all go according to plans, Nigeria will become the first African sovereign to float a digital currency, or E-NAIRA, alongside its fiat currency. October is the deadline set by the central bank for the CBDC, what you call the central bank digital currency adoption of flotation. Andrew Nevin is a partner and chief economist at PwC Nigeria, and is really looking forward to the coming of E-NAIRA. Andrew joins me now from our Abuja studios to discuss this and more. It's good to have you on the show tonight, Andrew. It's good to have you.
Great. Boason, it's always great to be here.
Thank you so much. So much about the E-NAIRA. The deadline set by the central bank for the adoption is about a month away. Do you think the business and the financial system or ecosystem is ready for this major move?
Yeah, no, I think we are ready. As you said, I mean, we're very positive on the E-NAIRA. I mean, these central bank digital currencies. Every central bank in the world almost is looking at them. There are various stages. There have been a few that have been launched, for example, in the Bahamas with the sand dollar, and China's done extensive trialing. And it's, we think it's a great step forward in the payment system. It's going to particularly benefit the bottom of the pyramid and drive financial inclusion here. And it's great to see that the CBN and the E-NAIRA are really out in front of the world, and it's going to be here soon.
You think we've made enough preparations? All the stakeholders, as the saying goes around here, have been carried along, the fintech community, even Nigerians themselves, who will be part of the entire operations and activities around the E-NAIRA.
You know, everyone has to be brought along. So, I mean, obviously there's got to be sensitization to the public and the benefits of the public. I mean, the merchants need to understand how it impacts them. The fintechs need to understand it. The banks need to understand it. But I mean, I'm pretty sure the CBN has all of this in flight at the moment as they get prepared for their launch on October 1st. But it's also important to remember, I mean, the E-NAIRA is not a single point in time. It's a whole journey. So, what is the E-NAIRA? The E-NAIRA is simply a digital representation of the cash naira. So cash is central bank money, and the E-NAIRA is now central bank money in a digital form, and it has a lot of advantages. But the advantages that we'll see, they'll come over time. So it's not like October 1st you're going to have all of the benefits from it, because what you need to do is the different ecosystem players need to build out different apps and different ways of using the E-NAIRA in the financial system. So a lot depends on them. This is not all about the central bank. It's about all of the players in the ecosystem taking advantage of what the E-NAIRA has to offer. Now, what does it have to offer? I mean, what's amazing about this, of course, is the E-NAIRA and all central bank digital currencies are based on this underlying technology that was developed for Bitcoin. So that was a private currency, largely anonymous, great worries about highly volatile, as people who trade it know, and great worries about using to finance terrorism or illicit flows of funds, et cetera. But the same technology, this distributed ledger technology, is now being used in a way that is probably much more advantageous to societies, particularly places like Nigeria. So you use the same technology, it brings down the cost of transactions. I mean, you can have low-value transactions that are executed instantly. The settlement process, for those of you who are interested in financial issues, the settlement process and the clearing process happen simultaneously. There's basically no errors in the system. So it's like digital cash. So you can go in and you can pay 178 naira for something, or 42 naira, 50 kobo for something, and transfer that value instantly. It's very difficult to do that with cash. And one of the problems we have in cash, of course, is just as an example, the 20 naira note costs more than 20 naira to print. So in a sense, the country loses every time we print a 20 naira note. With the digital cash, the costs come down, the transfer costs become essentially zero for the E-NAIRA, from an E-NAIRA wallet to an E-NAIRA wallet. So we saw big advantages, as I said, particularly for small value transactions and particularly for the bottom of the pyramid and financial inclusion.
This is going to be a disruption, in a manner of speaking, in an environment where you have a very huge population of not so literate individuals or folks who are a very large informal economy. So how quickly do you think this will catch steam, as it were, like a steam engine, in a manner of speaking, then everyone will rally around it and say, well, looks like it's a better way for me to do commerce and merchandising, which Nigeria is known for?
Right, but I mean, we can say we have a population that's not able to do these adaptations, but I don't think, Boason, that's quite fair. I mean, I think there were, by the estimates I have, about 2.5 billion e-payment transactions done last year. A lot of them, of course, are the NIBS, instant payment transactions, peer-to-peer. A lot of them are POS transactions, and of course, we've got mobile money. People adapt very, very quickly to this, and of course, Nigeria is the country that uses mobile internet more as a percentage of internet than any other country. So people are very adaptable. We have a very young country. People are very good with USSD, those who don't necessarily have smartphones, have feature phones. So they use USSDs to do their banking, to do their mobile top-ups. And I think there are, again, billions of transactions on USSD. So we have a very sophisticated and is the most advanced biometric system that I can see in the world. I remember the Bankers Committee discussing in 2013. They made it a great success, links every bank account in the country. So I don't expect it to be any different with the E-NAIRA. I think there'll be a really good uptake in the use cases where it's more advantageous than other payment mechanisms. I think it'll coexist with other payment mechanisms. It'll make the system more resilient, and I think Nigerians are very quick to adopt new technology. Of course, it's widely reported Nigerians are the second largest traders in cryptocurrency, so they've certainly learned how to use this distributed ledger technology very, very quickly.
Andrew, you're looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it as a financial journalist. It's going to deepen my reportorial thing and all of that. So let's discuss something different something a little bit different when second part, we'll talk about brain capital, isn't it? Stand by, everyone. PwC Nigeria's chief economist and partner, Andrew Nevin, believes that if Nigeria takes care of or invests in what he called brain capital, everything else will take care of itself. So what is brain capital and why is it important for a developing economy like Nigeria with a huge young population? Thanks for standing by, Andrew Nevin. You're a member of the OECD Steering Committee on Brain Capital. What does it really mean?
So brain capital is the idea that at the end of the day, I mean, what makes us able to do what we are as humans is our brain. And we need to take care of our brain. We need to maximize its effectiveness. But there's a few dimensions of this. There's obviously things like critical reasoning skills, thinking skills. There's knowledge, so basic knowledge, mathematics, reading, but then more advanced knowledge with science, the arts, humanities. But it's also things like emotional intelligence, mindfulness, et cetera. So that metacognition, which means you know how to learn. It's also the absence of dementia. For example, I mean, we know in many countries you see a really increasing rate of dementia. And then another dimension that's really critical to this, of course, is mental illness. And I think we're all more aware through the COVID era of mental illness and the impact of depression and schizophrenia and other mental illnesses. In totality, the OECD's idea is that if we consider all of this together, we can come up with a concept of brain capital. And the countries, if they want to do well, they should be, if they optimize their brain capital, as you said earlier, everything else will take care of itself. So, what I'm trying to do in my role, I sit on the Global Committee for Brain Capital for the OECD Steering Committee. But, of course, I'm based here, and we've been friends for a decade. I'd like to make Nigeria the very first country that stands up and says, actually, we want to optimize brain capital. And, of course, PwC has been talking about this for a long time because we put out the paper, not quite in this form, but we put out the paper a couple of years ago on the diaspora remittances, and we said Nigeria's biggest export is brains. And then more recently we've said we can export brains to earn FX without people leaving Nigeria. And so brain capital is the next logical extension of this, is as a matter of public policy, how do we optimize the brain capital? And if we do that, then we're going to have a very prosperous, successful nation. And of course, not just our economy, but also people's lives. If we have less dementia, if we have more emotional intelligence, more educated people, and we have less mental illness, we're all better off.
How do we inculcate brain capital? Who's going to do it? The formal educational school system, or how do we get it up and running? What's the template for it?
Well, so if we start out and we say we're the brain capital nation, so that's our public policy is to optimize brain capital of Nigerians. We have so many young Nigerians that have incredible potential in so many fields. We all know that. But then what would be the implication of it? Well, the implication of it is we have scarce resources. Where does resources go to optimize brain capital? They go into two major things, education and health, because you can't, your brain doesn't function if you aren't also healthy. So we might start, just as an example, stop subsidizing Ajaokuta steel. We might stop subsidizing the fuel. We might stop subsidizing the refineries that don't produce any oil. So rather than focus on that hard infrastructure, let's focus on the human infrastructure, the brain capital. And brains are the most valuable thing on the planet. I mean, the thing, why is the diaspora, from an economic viewpoint, such a big impact? Because when people go in the diaspora and they have very high-powered jobs, the Nigerian diaspora in the United States, in the UK and Canada, they earn a lot of money because in today's world, brains are really valued. People that have those skills are really valued, who can do the high-level jobs, and a lot of it flows back. But we can create that same value here if we focus on brains. And of course, the other implication of it, if one of our biggest imports, so when you think about spending our hard-earned FX on imports, one of our biggest imports is education and healthcare. I mean, officially, people go out of the country to get $3 billion of those, education and healthcare, out of the country. I think the number's probably quite a bit bigger, but that's an import. When people go out of the country to get educated, go out for healthcare, that's an import. So we should be investing money here to do the import substitution for the education and healthcare to occur here. That would be a much better economic policy in our view, higher value-added economic policy than focusing on, for example, low-end manufacturing. So if you trace this argument through, we're not going to go through this, in our view, the same stages of South Korea of trying to go from agriculture to low-end manufacturing. We already export brains on a massive scale. Brains are the most valuable thing. Brain capital is the most valuable thing. Let's leapfrog all of this and become the brain capital nation and make the investments in those things rather than low-end manufacturing that are really going to drive prosperity and value for Nigerians. But again, as I said, it also has a human side to it, because we do need to think about particularly mental illness. I think out of COVID, we're much more aware of mental illness, and we're much more accepting that many people are mentally ill. It's not their fault, and we should be investing to solve it as a social problem, not stigmatizing it.
My question is how to build it. I'm trying to look at the structure of governance that we have, the system of education and all of that, social structure. I'm trying to find out, how do we build brain capital? What's the template for it? Do we include it in an educational system? Do we go from the nursery, primary level, the basics as it were, or we take it all the way from the top into the tertiary institutions, or we include it in our industrial training program, whatever it is that we can? Can we get it work out in practical terms?
Well, to begin with, I think people will tell you, we all know the education system in Nigeria needs a reform. It needs more critical thinking. It needs less rote on that. It's not optimized. The resources are not optimizing the brain capital. So there needs to be a curriculum update, a philosophy update on that. But I'll add one other point. So Australia has started something called Thrive by 5, because one of the things we're finding on our OECD committee on brain capital is actually the first 5 years, like many things, are just critical. If someone by 5, the brain is 90% of the adult weight by age 5. So many things have happened to the brain. So Australia has this campaign now to invest in children that are 0 to 5 to optimize their brain capital, the development of the brain. So we may be even starting that early. So that's, so reform of the education system, focus on the very youngest groups. I think, but a critical part to it is just measurement. So part of my role at the OECD, I'm on the steering committee, as I said, but we have a subcommittee that's trying to develop a brain capital index. Because I come to the country and I say we should be the brain capital nation, someone's going to ask, how do we measure it? So this subcommittee is trying to develop an index. I think Nigeria should be at the forefront of endorsing this kind of index and using it to measure where our brain capital is at a particular point in time. So that aspect as well. So the education, the brain capital index. But I don't want to lose sight in this country that there needs to be more focus on mental health, destigmatizing it. What are the interventions to improve it on that? And there are more and more NGOs that are focused on mental health. So maybe those are 3 strategies that we could start to become the brain capital nation. But yeah, I have no doubt, having been here more than a decade, seen the incredible things that people do in difficult circumstances, we can be the leader in brain capital. As I said, brains are already our biggest export. So let's just build on that and take the next step with this concept.
Once the Brain Capital Index is out, you think Nigeria is going to be among the top 5?
Well, I don't want to speculate on that. I want to make it in the top 5. I think, I hope I live long enough to see that day. I have no doubt that it's perfectly doable. We all understand the potential of it. But I think it'll be very interesting, because I think you're going to find, in terms of brain capital, some countries that are wealthy in GDP actually don't have a strong brain capital, are not really doing well. They have high incidence of mental illness. They're not addressing dementia issues as they age. There's too much stress in the workplace, which creates well-being problems and feeds into the brain capital. So I think what the OECD is very innovative here, because instead, you think of kind of a very hidebound economics institution and thinking in classic terms, interest rates, GDP growth, productivity, et cetera. But it's really trying to go beyond that and saying, strip all that away, really underlying it in our modern economy and society. Brains are what drives everything. So how much time do you spend talking about your brain health, the way you think, as I said, your metacognition, your emotional intelligence, in addition to your critical thinking skills? We don't spend any time really thinking about that. So the OECD is trying to put it on the agenda globally, and I'd like to put it on the agenda in Nigeria.
We thank you for your time today, as always, Andrew Nevin, partner and chief economist at PwC Nigeria. See you some other time.